So let's get right into it. So Mr. Johnny Nitafan is here to talk about the top 3 objections to selling life insurance over the phone. And we're going to jump right into it and help you guys out with dealing with those frustrating objections, how to overcome them so you can help more families and make more money. So Johnny, what's up? How you doing today, man?
What's going on? Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it. So yeah, it's going to be good. I'm excited for this.
Start us off with a little bit about yourself. We've done a few videos on YouTube, but there may be some in the audience unfamiliar with yourself. So give us a little bio.
Yeah, totally. My name is Johnny Nitafan. If you haven't met me, I'm just been in the insurance space for a little over a year now. Just past my 13 months, I guess, in the business. But in that 13 months in the life insurance business, was able to write over $500,000 in life insurance premium. And it's been all over the phone except maybe 8,000 of it. Right. So my first few appointments were in person after 2 weeks of going just offers, right? Not selling a policy over the phone, or it was Zoom appointments at that time, which I was trying to do. And then went into the field, wrote my first 2 apps. And it felt great. My first 2 appointments in the field, wrote them, and actually spent 5 hours in the home. And I was like, holy cow. Ended up, the app got declined, and it was just really? And then the other one, I didn't know how to write the application. So I got all the banking info, but I wasn't able to set it up. And so I put it on Direct or something like that. It was with American Amicable. And I was like, oh, cool, that's good. And then I was like, it never asked for banking. And I called my mentor later, and he's like, that's exactly what not to do. So what ended up happening was I got the banking. He was cool giving the banking to me. But what's funny is that the policy never got issued because it mailed to their house. And he just was like, yeah, I don't want it anymore. And I was like,
yeah.
Are you serious?
So you've been through the downs of this business as much.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Exactly. Perfect. And so if you guys have watched The Ultimate Agent, that's the last time I ever went out into the field, because I literally got cussed out. A guy was just super heated about that. And so I was like, yep, definitely not doing this again. That was actually the first time I ever won call close. It was in April last year. And ever since then, I was like, holy cow, I think I opened up a whole new world. And from there, I've just been selling over the phone.
So over the phone exclusively. You've been doing most of that $500,000 in the last 13 months. So your perspective here, as we talk about objections to overcome over the phone, it comes from firsthand experience. This isn't theory. This is applied reality.
Correct.
So let's jump right into it. Number one, here is an objection that you will hear all the time, no matter what it is that you sell. I already got that taken care of.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you do about this?
Well, yeah, if I'm calling you, I'm using a power phrase, right? I'm like, hey, perfect. That's exactly why I'm calling here. And the reason that I'm just going to go through it first, give it a quick overview on how I do it, so you guys could match the tonality and just realize that there's ups and downs. The tonality is huge here. And then most importantly is really, really de-arming. So I'm going to actually break it down for you guys after, but I just want to kind of role play and go through it so you kind of hear how it sounds, and then from there really break down the why you do it, right? So if you say, hey, I already got it taken care of, just take me off the list, I'm like, hey, perfect, that's exactly why I'm calling here, Dave. Before you hang up, your file was still open here. Do you remember, do you get the A, B, or C option?
I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Okay, totally. And I mean, do you remember how much they were, I guess, charging you roughly?
For my coverage?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't, man, that's been 6 months ago. I slept since yesterday. Probably, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks, something like that.
You said $50?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's super expensive. Was it because you were in super bad health, or?
No, man, I'm picture health. Look at me.
So you were healthy? Any minor or major medical issues that you could think of? And right there, right? So I'm going to start going into the medical, and while they're really backpedaling, I'm really just going to keep asking the questions. Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's figure this out. Was it because you're in really bad health, or and I'm going to start asking all the medical, right? So if you're going through an application or you're whatever it is, right? Or if you're on final expense toolkits or insurance toolkits, whatever it is, I'm asking all the questions. Or if you have a sheet in front of you, I'm asking all the questions and like all in a curious tone, like, was it because like, did you have any cancer, strokes, or heart attacks? And if they're no, like, I mean, did you have any like diabetes or like high cholesterol or like high blood pressure? And if they're like, oh yeah, diabetes, like what medications were you on? That's strange here. Huh, okay. Okay, so you did have diabetes. Like, did you have any like any medical like complications from that? Like any diabetic neuropathy? Like, I'm really just continuing to get into that. And then I'm kind of just like looking around to see what we can maybe possibly get them. But the whole point of this, right? So you're like, perfect. That's exactly what I'm calling. It's a power phrase because any objection that you're going to get in the intro of the call it's disarming.
Right.
It's not coming at them. You don't want to attack the objection. You want to disarm them. And the only way you do that is by like, oh, that's exactly what I was calling here. And they're like, what? Like that? Okay. And I'm like, before you hang up. And so like, I'm really like, I kind of jolt, right? Because like, just so they don't hang up, your file was still open here. And like, because how I look at it is like, their file came across my desk. I wouldn't be calling them if they already had the coverage. So they're like, it's open. Their form's open here. So I'm like, what option did you get? Did you get the A, B, or C option? And the reason I asked that is like, it kind of is confusing, but also like the main reason I asked this is because most people are going to give 3 options, a 3-option close. So I'm just genuinely like, what option did you end up going with? And usually they'll be like, oh, the A and B option, or like, oh, that option, or like, and how much coverage did you end up going with? And then I'm just super curious. And then they're like I asked like, how much were they charging you for that? Or how much was that payment? And then whatever they say, I'm just going to be like, oh, wow. Like if it's like $10 a month, then I'm like, were you looking for something that would just pay out of an accident? Like I've been and it's like an assumption, right? Because the reason I say that is because it's more of, I've been doing this for a while. You're 70 years old, Miss Betty. There's no way it's $10 a month for 10,000, like, or 15 or 20,000, right? Or 100,000. There's no way, right? So I'm like, oh, is that like, were you looking for something that just paid out of an accident, or like something that would actually stay the same for the rest of your life? Right. And I try to just fact find and get as much information there as I can, and then really start going into the health questions and really going into like, I mean, let's talk through this, right? I'm getting on their side of the table. Like, let's talk through this. What's going on here?
So can I make a comment, Johnny, on this?
You said what?
Can I make a comment on this? Just some
Totally.
perspective, kind of, I think, just to communicate what you're doing. What I see listening to you, and I want to point this out to the agents out there who are selling over the phone or in person, doesn't really matter. It's more important, I think, over the phone. If you watch Johnny and picture him as an actor on stage, right? He's playing the part of and let's hope that he's sincerely curious, but he's performing just as much as he's reading the script. Everybody sense that? You can see it in his mannerisms, even as he's talking, like he's doing physically what you would do on stage to communicate this tonality to the prospect, right? Why is that important? Because Johnny, we have to interrupt their thinking. They're trying to hang up the phone. They don't want to talk to us. And you see all these kind of performance things like the jolt, right? What he says, but it's not just what he says, it's how he's saying it. It's intriguing, it's drawing the prospect in. They're maybe a little confused to begin with, but they're interested. And if you can just keep them on the phone, there's sales to be made. And that's all of what I would say. Johnny, feel free to follow up on anything I'm saying here. I feel like that's kind of the power here that many times agents miss. It's not just, I got the script to make a lot of money. That's half the battle. The other part is you got to perform the thing. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And like when you're selling over the phone, all you have is your voice and your tonality. That's all you have, right? Instead of like having body language and like being able to move and interact, like that's all you have is your tonality. That's how you express things. You draw people in by, like, let's talk through this. Like, what, like, in the first place got you looking for, I guess, some life insurance, right? And then I'm like, oh my God, that's expensive. Like, was it because you're in really bad health? Like, you want to kind of like overemphasize it a little bit, because honestly, when I'm like role playing with different people, like, it's a lot of times they're not even doing it enough, and you have to over exaggerate because that's all you have is your tonality, right? And I still use the body language. I still move, and I'm like, let's talk through it, right? I'm using my body language because then my tonality matches it.
Right. That's money
So
right there, guys. That's everything. And it, you know, it would be helpful too. Like, it's easier to see Johnny do this, but imagine that the camera's off. That's how you're going to sound. And without body language, all you've got, like Johnny says, is your tone, your voice. You have, and the thing is, you really do, just like Johnny said, you have to overemphasize it. Like, if you and I were talking in person and Johnny was doing all this stuff, it'd be weird.
Yeah, it'd be
it's not over the phone. You know, it's required if you want to have people listen to you, because who knows, they may be watching Jerry Springer, God rest his soul, in the background, and, you know, looking out the window, cooking food. You know, who knows what's going on? Like, you don't know what they're looking at, what they're distracted by. You have to make up for it. Let's keep going here in the interest of time. The next one, I need to think about it. Oh boy, here's the one they do. Do they really need to think about it?
Yeah, it's a good question. And like, if I'm gonna be honest, guys, there's a million ways you come up with this, right? This is what I've just, in my experience, what I've done. This is what's helped me. There's millions of other ways that you can overcome it. There's probably other word tracks out there, but for me, this is what has helped me. And to preface this, you're not going to close everybody. And that's just the reality. Some people, like, there's no magical wizardry out there that, like, you say this one thing and you're going to close 100% of sales. It's like, it's not that. I just want to preface it with that. But this is what's worked for me to help in the closing over $500,000 in my first year, right? So when they say that, I usually know that it's about to come. Like, I already feel it just based on certain other things throughout the actual presentation. Maybe when I'm asking like the why questions, they're not opening up. Maybe they're really unsure about it. Like, there's some things like that you can pick up along the way that this is going to come up, right? So I could feel it usually when it's coming up. Maybe I'm rushing it a little bit. And that, but when that comes there, I'm like, hey, I totally understand, Miss Buddy. Let me ask you this. Does everything about the policy, I guess, make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess what did you like most about it?
Well, I mean, I like that it doesn't cancel.
Oh, I'm with you on that. What else? Like, besides that it doesn't cancel and will last the rest of your life, what else did you like about it?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And obviously, like we talked before, like you said that you need this coverage.
Yeah.
You said that you need something in place. And so all we can really do today is actually apply for the coverage. And while the insurance company thinks, you'll actually have 30 days to really make sure that you like the $10,000 plan. Does that make sense? So if you decide later on, like we can, like, if you decide you want to add later on, we can definitely do that. Let's just see if we could even get you qualified. Did you want to start with the 10,000, or did you maybe like the $12,000 option more? Good. And I like share, like, it's only like about $15 more. Did you like that one, or did you just want to stay with the 10,000, right? And so that's the commitment there of like, hey, like, okay, like, yeah, I want that one. Let's just stay with that. And the reason I asked that next question after is, so I asked like what their beneficiary is to kind of like get them off the subject a little bit, but then I go right back at it. And this is where you're truly going to see, like, because a lot of times it's kind of a smoke screen. Some will really need to think about this, but like, a lot of times it's a smoke screen objection. And then the second thing really here is like, I pitch higher like there because it's like, okay, no, let's just stay down, and like they pull down and they're saying they want it at that point. It's not a matter of like if they want it or not. It's like it's just kind of assuming the close. Hey, do you want the 10,000 more or more the 12,000? And it's not really asking if they want it, but it's by asking them which one option they like. It's not you're not even asking if they want it, because they already do. They've already expressed it in before.
Y'all catch that? That's really important. When you're closing, do you want to buy this option? You want to buy that option? Notice what option's not there. Do you want it? It's presumed. That if there's one thing to pick up from this, whatever you say objection rebuttal wise, close, show some leadership. You know, if you don't close, you don't seem like you're confident, right? You just seem like you're meandering. You know, you don't have the confidence of your conviction, right? So tell them what, here, let's do this when you want to do that one, right? So that's good, John. Yeah. You mentioned the beneficiary. Could you repeat that, please? I didn't quite catch where you mentioned the beneficiary. You said you go there and then you come off and then come back.
Yeah, so, okay, so I'm like, if you decide, like, so you'll actually have 30 days to really make sure you want that $10,000 plan, or maybe if you want to add. So if you do want to add, we can definitely do that. Let's just see if we could even get you qualified here. And you said you wanted Joe as your beneficiary. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And Joe, what was his name? I write it down. Boom. All right, perfect. And for you, did you want to start with the $10,000 plan, or I guess did you like the $12,000 option?
Gotcha. Okay. So you use the beneficiary to just kind of get off the pain a little bit of the price and then indecision to get commitment back and then get back to the price.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like even and this kind of transitions into the social and banking as well. Right. So if I get the objection right away of like, I don't want to give my social, I'm like, hey, totally understand. And I'll say this word track, right? I'm like, hey, totally understand. The reason we ask that is one of two things. The first one is to verify the death benefits actually go to the right person. And you're not the only Miss Betty in the world, right? So this is actually to make sure that the correct beneficiary is actually paid as they match the death certificate with the social to ensure that it's going to the right person. And two, actually to see if you actually qualify medically, right? So to make sure that no doctors are coming out to the house, they actually do a quick check on your medications and health history just to make sure you qualify. So I guess what was your social?
Okay.
And so I'll ask that, I'll say that. If they're really like, no, then I just go on to the next question. And then I'll loop back around, right? So I'll go on, like, I'll maybe ask the medical questions, maybe get the doctor info, then I'll come back to that. The reason why I don't prefer that, and like, it's good, looping is great. However, you don't want to ask the social and banking back to back, because that's like, it's two of the biggest questions that you're going to get objections on throughout the whole thing. So like, you want to loop back, but then make sure there's other questions possibly you can ask throughout the application that you can go like that you can ask in between. Because what I've seen is like, I asked the social, I've already asked all the other questions in the application, then I asked the social, then the banking. It's like, it just gets way too much.
So split up the social and banking. It's almost like people they're like, scammer alert. It's kind of
and the reason why is like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, it'll put them on high alert, one, but two, it allows me to build some more rapport throughout the presentation, throughout the application, right? So like, I'm like, it'll allow me to build some rapport. Like when I'm saying like any DUIs or DWIs in the last 10 years, they're like, no, I would never do that. It's like, oh, I'm with you. I'm the exact same way. And like, it's just getting on common ground. Cause at the end of the day, the social and banking, lack of trust, right? It's just lack of trust. And what that means is that I need to build more rapport, and it's not asking what the weather's like, but it's more getting on common ground with them. Right. And asking the application questions allows me to get on more common ground, because it's like, exactly what I said, the DUI stuff, but also if they're like, I don't know, there's other application questions that like can build some rapport, possibly like, oh, you're located, okay, your address is this. Oh, you're located in Kentucky. You've been there for a while, or like, did you just move there? right? So that's another thing as well.
How do you set up the banking question? So we know how to deal with the social. How do we overcome the banking resistance? What's your
yeah, so usually, I feel like direct express is like kind of the death of me, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's like I really don't want to take direct express. Like if they have a bank, I'm going with the bank, and I don't want to get like direct express because like it just a lot of times like the company like Prosperity is nice because they don't pay as earned, like they'll advance you, but like the other ones will make you like as earned, right? Like Trinity, and there's a few other ones that'll like be as earned, which is like, I don't like that. But two, like I've seen banking gives better persistency for me. And so that's kind of why I prefer that. And so I actually asked this in the medical questions, like, hey, just to see if you qualify for that savings plan. And the reason I say that is because expensive than like a lot of other carriers, right? So like with safety, will give you a cheaper rate, just in general, right? So I'm like, hey, just see if you qualify for that savings plan again, because not every company does it. But I'm like, hey, just see if you qualify for that savings plan. You do have an active checking account, right? And I'm literally like nodding my head when I'm asking questions, trying to assume like I'm like nodding my head, right? Like I'm just waiting, like, oh, right. And I'm just like nodding my head. And so say that, perfect. So I already know that they have that, so they cannot go back on me because I already know that, right? Sometimes, and this is what I faced last week, is somebody's like, I only have a card. I'm like, what card did you have? Like, I'm just kind of confused. And they're like, oh, it's a net spend card. In the back of my head, that's a bank. It's MetaBank. So, all right, cool. You don't just have a card. And literally, I've been on film. There's two back-to-back that were like this, and they didn't have their routing and account. I added MetaBank to the line, and we got the routing and account numbers because they didn't have it, but they're like, I want it. I just don't have that information, right? So I'm not biting on that. Like where there's a will, there's a way. So I'm going, hey, perfect. So okay, perfect. So we know, we already established that they do have banking. They do have an active bank account. Perfect. So when do you usually get Social Security? Usually the first or the third? If they're like, whatever they say, I'm like, perfect. We could set that up for that day monthly. So we can, so that's what I do. We set it up for that monthly. And then I'm like, perfect. So what bank do you usually use? And they'll say Chase Bank or US Bank, whatever, right? So I'm like, oh, they're seems like everybody's going there. They're actually one of our preferred vendors here. And then as I'm like going like that, I'm like, have you been using them for a while? Oh, and then I'm like, Chase Bank, US or Chase Bank and I'm like, you got that in Kentucky, right? That's huge because they may have gotten it in South Carolina, but they're living in Kentucky now. So I'm like, just making sure that they open the bank there. Okay, perfect. So looks like, the routing number actually automatically populates in our system here as 0830 what blah 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 whatever, right? From there, I say, okay, so I get that, and a lot of times they will say yes. I'm like, that sounds right. Immediately, I'm just like, go ahead and verify that for me. Go grab a check and let me know when you're ready.
So it's like they initiate it as opposed to you asking it. You're like, oh, you got it. Great. Go get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, exactly. Like if they say yes, that's it. Like I will tell you guys, 90% of these people don't have their routing and account memorized. They're just going to go with it. They don't want to conflict it. Right. So I'm like, I asked that and then say, okay, go ahead and verify that for me, right? Because if they go and verify it, they have the account number right there because I kept running into that objection. They'd be like, yes. I'm like, oh, I'm in. What? And your account number? And they're like, oh, I don't have that. And it's like, let's just take that fully off the table because then it's a lot easier once you get them to read the routing. And I'm like, okay, the next number, boom, they read the account number and we're done, right? So if they don't want to give the banking, and I'll kind of wrap up here, if they don't want to give the banking, I'm like, hey, totally understand. The only thing I'd be able to actually do with the routing and account number is actually deposit money into your account. Now, debit cards are the number you don't want to give out over the phone. So we have your routing number is this, is that right? And they'll say whatever it is. Okay, perfect. Could you just go ahead and verify that for me? And I go make them get the checkbook, and then, okay, perfect. What was your, and then the account, and then just let them say it, and then just go from there, right? So you're not going to save everybody, but these are some word tracks that I've used to really help close more deals and really push the people that are on the fence over, that have helped really like increase my closing percentage.
Johnny, thank you. So before we wrap this up, you've got a YouTube channel and you got a Facebook group. Can you share this with the audience, please?
Totally. So I'm actually for you guys like watching live, I'm actually gonna drop all the in the comments. So and then I'll give it to you, Dave, as well. So the so actually, yeah, I have a Facebook community. We've been going about, I don't know, a few months. And so I actually just give like all this in depth. I actually have like a 30-minute in-depth, I need to think about it training, tonality training. I have all the top 9 objections you're going to face, the word tracks. And I'm just documenting my journey in there, sharing real numbers of like when I issued 20,000 in a week on $1,000 of lead spend, what the activity looked like. I'm just sharing all the secrets, I guess, for free. So I'm going to drop it here. That's to get like to apply to the Facebook community. And then here is the word tracks. So I got that there. So those are the word tracks as well. So you guys watching here, if you guys want to check it out, if you guys are watching this recording, just join the Facebook community, and then I will kind of sort through that. We don't accept everybody, unfortunately, but the people who we do, they get that all for free as well. So yeah,
we'll put a link of some sort in the YouTube videos that'll come up from this, Johnny. And then you're also on YouTube. Just put your name in, Johnny Nitafan, in the YouTube. You'll find his channel. He's got live telesales calls to listen to, which are great to kind of compile all this training together and see it for real. So yeah, awesome.
Exactly. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Dave, for having
Johnny.
me.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate you.